my question for the other, and for me, for the panelists, is how has the truth part of Truth and Reconciliation changed your perspective?
It's done a lot for me to make me feel relieved. Really relieved. My father left school at the age of 12 and went into a winter camp with an elder in the bush. And when they came to take him back, the elder said, no, he stays. This man works for me now, and he's a man, and you leave him alone. My dad never told me that story. He told that story to my brothers. The story he told me was about how when he went to the Catholic school, they would always tell him, oh, you don't think we're bad, those Protestants, they're the really evil people. Then he went to the Protestant school and they said, no, you think we're bad, those Catholics are the really evil people. And he went, so I learned how people lie. We always grew up knowing who we were. And I'm so infinitely grateful for that, because I grew up in a time when a lot of people were French, when a lot of people were hiding because they had to. And when my mom brought back an Indian to Northern Alberta who didn't come from Northern Alberta, people said, you could just say he's French. It would be easier for the children. I am everlastingly grateful that both my parents reared up and said, in what way would that be easier? You got a problem, that's your problem. So we grew up with that knowledge, and I'm so grateful for that. What we grew up without was a community of support. And like Miranda's story, I didn't quite understand why we didn't go back to the reserve. We didn't have anything to do with those cousins over there. Not that we were told to hate them. We just stayed away from there. My dad was very plain about, he said, growing up on that reserve, that was a place to die. Okay? They told me when I was a teenager, you want to live? Get out of here. Go out into the world or you're going to die. So I had this very strong sense of it as a place full of people who were doomed. And without the truth about what caused that really strong feeling of you have to get the hell out of here or you're going to die, I would have never had the feeling I have now of relief that, okay, I can understand. I can understand my cousins, I can understand my lost relatives, I can understand my dad, I can understand so much more, because I see that what he was talking about was not some strange little story, but just a tiny thread, a huge story. And one that the more you know about it, the more rich it becomes. It's a terrible story. The truth part of it is a terrible story. I've been honored, not in the TRC events, but just in my general life, to sit with people who have told me their stories of residential schools, who've told me of being raped, of being beaten, of watching while their girlfriend was raped and there was nothing they could do about it, of being force-fed salt till they nearly died. Just things, the kind of stories that came out in the TRC as well. And you don't hear those stories and walk away unmarked. But before the TRC, I didn't have the sense of this powerful, cohesive narrative that we can then get to grips with. Now I feel the truth has set me free to say to you, hey, do you know about this? And not in some kind of knock on your door Jehovah's Witness kind of way, but if it comes up, to say, I feel like I can talk to you about it. Whoever you are, I feel like I can talk to you about it now. I don't have to just carry that and only talk about it with people who might have the countersign, the secret knowledge, the family experience themselves. It becomes all our family experience, and that's so important.
Once you start learning a little bit grows into a lot, and you start realizing the true magnitude of the legacy. I think the astonishing part of it for me was just how much it permeates into everyday life, that this affects our social and judicial and governance systems. I've got some stats here, but the last residential school closed in 1996. That, I remember 1996. I was still in high school. Just kidding. But, you know, like estimates of 150,000 kids taken from their family, and 6,000 of those died while they were at residential schools. And some of their parents never, ever found out what happened to their kids. And that, like Anna Marie said, you can't walk away from that. So I think that probably has changed for me, learning about it since the TRC, and then just having someone personal in your life that's been affected by it. And I think the biggest thing too, the truth part of it is for me that this isn't an indigenous people's issue. This is a Canadian issue. This is all of our responsibility to do something about this, to make sure it doesn't happen again.
So the truth part for me was this realization that residential schools and the experience and the intergenerational effects that it's had was no longer this dirty little secret that Indigenous people had to share amongst themselves. It now became the responsibility and the burden of every Canadian. And every time I have an opportunity to share even a portion of my story or talk to people about residential school, I feel like a weight is lifted off my shoulders. I feel like the burden is now being carried by everyone in this room, and it doesn't weigh me down anymore. And so the truth portion to me is that the more people learn and understand the truth, the more people are called to act to make it different for the future. And when I gave my testimony to the TRC, I was gifted this tobacco pouch and this rock, and I carry it in my left hand every time I have an opportunity to share my truth. And it gives me strength, and it reminds me that at the time that the settlement agreement was signed, there was an estimated 86,000 survivors living in Canada. Only about 7,000 of them chose to share their story with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So I have an obligation as one of those people to continue to tell my story for the people that aren't ready to or haven't got a chance to. So thanks.
For me, one of my favorite quotes from Justice Murray Sinclair is, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." And that's definitely been my experience the more that I've learned and taken in about the legacy of residential schools and the history of residential schools. This was my question that I came up with that I wanted to hear everybody's answer to, and also give my own answer to, because honestly, it's changed the way that I see Canada fundamentally. And the privilege and the life that I enjoy rests on the back of genocide. And that is, I mean, it's doom and gloom, but that's how it is. It's changed my view of my country. That being said, though, I feel like there's so much opportunity to do better and to do things differently. And sometimes I have friends that challenge me about this stuff and like, what are you posting on Facebook all the time about the TRC for? What is that all about? And we have really interesting discussions. And I'm really happy that the truth allows me to have those conversations in an open and generous way. I mean, in my mind, there really is no argument. This happened, there's a legacy, we need to deal with it. So the truth has allowed me to have those conversations and share the truth with others, being open to it. So that kind of then leads me to my next favorite quote, which is, "We are all treaty people." I am definitely guilty of thinking that this is an Indigenous issue or has been an Indigenous issue. And having that feeling of, I feel a bit sorry for Aboriginal people and Indigenous people. And isn't that too bad that they struggle so much? And it's been such a life-changing experience to move into actually being really, and I want to swear, but I'm not going to, like really impressed with the resiliency of Indigenous people, and they are still here, and their culture is still here, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. There's lots of struggles, but they are still here, and they're still rocking it. And if we as settlers can join with them and rock it together, I think the Canada that we can create is the one that a lot of us think exists already. I think we can get there, but we need to do it together.